Hey guys, welcome back to Dad's Van. In this video, I'm going to show you how I did a 80/20 10 series extruded aluminum overhead cabinet frame on both sides of the van. One up here in the front, driver's side, one in the rear, passenger side. This is a long video. I decided to include everything from putting in support brackets to putting in the headliner, testing all the lighting as I did that. As well as bolting this to the support brackets through the headliner, which involves cutting the headliner. So a lot of stuff in this video. I hope you find it useful. There are some links to different products I used or that you'll see in this video. If you click those links, I get a small commission, but it doesn't cost you anything more. So thanks for joining, and let's check this out. All right, today I'm going to start work on my 80/20 aluminum overhead cabinetry. First off, I just want to acknowledge that this idea, I didn't come up with it. It came from Ken and our caravan. I'll have links to his website in the video. The main difference between what he did and what I'm doing is that I'm going to be using 10 series in my build. A few reasons I did that. One was to save on some weight. Second was to save on cost. And the cost was kind of the big driver for me because I really wanted to go with the black anodized aluminum, which costs more. So by going down to 10 series, it kind of offset that additional cost over the 15 series. Now in the other cabinet builds that used 1.5" or 15 series 80/20, the backing bracket is 1.5" half profile length. And then on the other side of the headliner is 1.5" angle fiberglass, and attached to the bottom of that is 1.5" 15 series. That is the back rail of the aluminum frame cabinet. So basically that puts you, the bottom of the cabinet's at about the 3-inch mark down from this edge here. And since I'm using 10 series, I have to offset for that. So what I'm going to be doing is using a 2-inch half profile length, and that'll allow me to do the bolt through to the van wall in this top inch, which is important because you really can't bolt anything in at a lower location, because behind here you can only reach down about 1.25" to 1.5" at best. So bolting through on the very top inch is kind of critical here. So the 2-inch will allow me to do the bolt in up here on the top inch, and then the bottom inch here on this track is where we'll come through the headliner to attach a 1-inch angle fiberglass, and then onto the bottom back 1-inch 10 series piece of the aluminum framing. So we'll end up at the same kind of 3-inch down from this point for the bottom of our cabinets. So that's the goal here. Thanks for joining, and let's check this out. All right, so I'm using a 6-foot piece of 2-inch 10 series half profile. That's just the size it could come in from McMaster, and so I didn't cut it down. That gives me a little bit of wiggle room, but I did some checking earlier on how the aluminum frame cabinet back lower rail would go up against the headliner. And because the headliner kind of curves out a little bit near the end, the safest we can start it at is about halfway on this last oval plug here that the headliner snaps into. So I've marked that halfway point as a starting, and then I've marked at 2-inch here from that edge. I've marked at 2 inches, and then 14 inches 4 more times from there. So that gets us pretty much all the way to close to 60 inches. So that's where I'm going to be drilling through. When I drill Since I'm using 10 series, I'll be using quarter 20 hardware. And so I'm going to be drilling 1/4 inch holes through this half profile. Make sure you use a magnet to catch any filings, and also put up some draping. Okay, I think I've said this in previous videos, but I'll repeat it again. Always use a stop collar when drilling through parts of the van that right immediately behind it you have the exterior wall. So like in this case here, this 1/4 inch drill bit is much too long and would poke through the van wall. So we're going to put a stop collar on here for when we drill through this half profile. Also want to always use a magnet to kind of catch any filings. All right, so we got this up on the wall. You can clamp it up, or I found when I did the other side that getting it perfectly lined up with the holes is, before you start screwing individual ones, really important. So kind of feeding the bolts through before anything is tightened. Make sure that you have it aligned well. The holes on the rail and the holes in the van is useful. And then just got to slide the track nuts in. You can see this last one, after I have all of the other 4 bolts in, it's difficult to get the last one in. And then you can just kind of push the bolts out, slide the nut in place, and then okay, I'm going to use some orange thread locker on each of these as I install them. All right, just to show you how much of this I'm applying. Do that to about the first half, and it'll naturally spread around Alright, so I'll just show you here. So this one, trying to hand tighten it. It's going a little bit. Goes coming through. That's about as far as it's going to go via hand tightening. But you can see here, maybe better over here. It's about as far as they should go. So at least for the length screw I had, it will poke through a little further. Okay, we're finished getting this bolted up. Here's what it looks like up close. You can kind of see where this lines up. Ditto on the other side. Now for mounting the cabinets, not only are we going to have them bolted into this support rail here, but we're also going to be bolting them into the ceiling. For that, I've got these 1/4-20 cross nuts. These require you to drill a 5/16 hole. So we're going to be using this hole here on the cross member, which isn't quite large enough. So we're going to open that up with a 5/16 drill bit. We'll paint it, and then we'll install these plus nuts so that the upper support on the cabinets can bolt into that. All right, for these overhead supports on the cabinet, I'm going to be using this hole, which is on each of the cross members going across. I need to open it up to be 3/8. That will be the size required to accept this 1/4-20 cross nut. So I've got my magnet up here to catch any filings. I've got the area draped off. You're going to want to make sure to use a stop collar, because we are drilling up here and we don't want to punch through into the roof of the van. All right, then we're just going to repeat this on each of the cross members. All right, the other thing I like to do after drilling out a new hole is just take some emery cloth and kind of roll it up to the size of that hole, and then insert it in there and just spin it around to clean or deburr the hole. Okay, once that's done, go ahead and get our Rust-Oleum paint and get those holes painted. All right, and then once that dries, we can get a little test fit of the cross nut in there, and then we'll get started putting the headliner back on. All right, we're getting ready to put in the headliner. I've gone ahead and placed the roll-in T-nuts starting at 4 inches in, and then every 14 inches from there. And I've got tape here, which will be, showing where those are, and that'll be down below the headliner, so we can know where they're at once the headliner's on. Alright, so first thing I'm going to do is still have some clips in here that broke when I originally took the headliner off. So they're kind of missing the very last ring of plastic. So we're going to replace those with some new ones that I got online. It's replacement part 008-988-0978. All right, this last, or now first headliner piece goes in with these gray plastic pins. And they're a two-part thing. There's an inner part that expands when you push it through. And I definitely broke some of these when I first took it off, so might not have enough to get it back on. If so, I'll have to order some, but let's see what happens here. Okay, so as I mentioned before, I broke some of these push pins when I first took this out. You can get them at your Mercedes dealer. They are $6 a pop, but there's only 6 of them that are used here. Actually, oddly, I counted 7, so I'm not sure where that 7th one comes from, but I bought an extra one just in case. And the other kind of pin, push pin that's used on these headliners is this black one. And that goes in these center spots. All right, we got the headliner section up. Next thing we're going to be doing is one section at a time, poking through and cutting with a foam cutter the hole that will allow us to mount the cabinets to the support rail. Now, since I've already got marked where the roll-in T-nuts are, I'm just going to use straight edge here, and we'll poke through. Well, that's right where we want to be. So we'll go ahead and get this foam cutter loaded into the drill. Bingo. You can see here where the T-nut's at. All right, the way you do this is you put the clips, plastic clips, in the metal slots first. Make sure you push them in all the way. Then you hook in the side, and then you just start popping them in as you go across. All right, so we're finally ready to put in the trim piece that came with the Max fan. This trim piece comes in a standard depth that's actually a little bit deeper than we need for the Sprinter factory headliner. So by test fitting this, once the headliner was in, test fitting this, I found about 2 inches need to be cut off here. So I've gone ahead and gone all the way around each side and marked that. And I'm just going to take some, these are actually metal cutters, and just start cutting that out. All right, we got that trimmed down. It doesn't need to be exact because we're going to be screwing this in anyway. That's what's going to hold it. All right, one of the things you're going to want to do when putting these panels in is make sure you test the lighting and anything electric before you put them back in. That way you don't have to rip them back out if there's a problem. So in this case, for this set of lights, I went ahead and just wired up the 12-volt connection so I could test these lights before I snap this fully into place. And I can check that they're working. And I just did that with a male cigarette light or 12-volt DC connector to a blue C panel that just had red and black wires that I twist tied to a connector that snapped to the male connector coming out from those lights. All right, and then just using a flashlight, we can kind of push back in here. Yep. Verify we got that lined up. Basically, this point goes through and it should come into contact with that roll-in T-nut right in the center where the 1/4 hole is. You can kind of wiggle it around and see that it's moving, and then you know you're good to drill. Then we got our foam cutting 1-inch drill bit. Okay, so we're ready to put this cross nut into the hole that we drilled and painted before. I cut out a foam circle around it here. Preferably you want to put these in before you put the headliner on. So here's our cross nut expansion tool. I'm going to thread this onto the back. Pop that up in there. In that 3/8 hole that we drilled. Then you want to hold this with a 7/8 wrench, and then with an 11/16 socket, we're going to expand that nut. And then just switch back to a 3/16 hex to loosen this. And then you can take it out, off. Okay, just a couple tips when laying this out. Make sure you know how long your cabinet's going to be. In my case, that's 60 inches. And then remember that after this headliner plug slot, it starts to curve, so you really can't have the cabinet go past that, even though I have a little railing that goes further. And then set your roll-in T-nuts accordingly. So I've got them here all the way down, and make sure, in my case, 60 inches ends right around here, so you don't want to set a T-nut beyond that, or your framing won't have anything to tie into. And then also, make sure you engage or line up your framing so that it can engage with the overhead cross nuts. I wanted to get 3 of those on each cabinet, so 1, 2, 3. Make sure that's within the length of your cabinet and where you're going to place it on the rail. Same thing over here. I wanted to get 3 of the overheads, so 1, 2, and then the third one will be here. So my cabinet's going to come all the way to this intersection here. And then, want to make sure that 60 inches, in my case, ends where that last roll-in T-nut is, and it does. That's exactly 60. Okay, next section of headliners going in. First thing you want to do is take the black push pin, put it in the center hole here. Just to hold this up. All right. Now with these headliners, you're gonna want to put these gray clips into these channels first before attaching the headliner. Make sure they snap in all the way. All right, we're getting ready to put in the big section of the headliner. Already got that all wired up. You can see that in another video. Again, we're going to put these gray clips into the metal channels first. Just wanted to point this out. This black foam piece, it goes right here on the driver's side between the large section and the first panel back behind the passengers. But this isn't going to fit anymore, and now that we have insulation and the support rail, we don't need it anyway, so it's gone. Actually, before I put on the next section, I'll do one thing to help myself. I'm going to mark exactly where these are. Okay, now I know where those are. Now for these overhead ones on the driver's side, since this large piece is going to cover up both of these cross rails where I've got cross nuts, I need to know where this is at, so I went ahead and measured from this one to here. It's about 16 3/4, and then from this one to here is 22. So I'll write that down. And then what we'll have to do is locate it here using a level from here all the way all the way to this unused hole up here. We can do that with a level, and we should be able to see that unused hole. Okay, we got the large headliner section in, and we got a drill for all of this overhead cabinet. All right, we're ready to put in the last headliner section, which is actually the front one. Again, first thing we want to do is get these gray clips installed into these little channels here first. All right, before taking the front headliner off, or in this case, before putting it back on, you have to remove these visors and overhead shelves. And there's 4 Torx bolts to do that. There's one here, second one here, third one up there, and the last one, you have to pop this out, is up in this clip. So if you take those 4 out, then this whole assembly will be removed. And that's what you need in order to get the front headliner in and out from behind this airbag cover. You need to get those out of the way. All right, show you what I'm talking about. So just take your trim tool and get it kind of back behind there. Sorry, get it back behind there, and then just get it enough so you can kind of pull that plastic. And then I think the rest of this will go by hand. After getting this headliner in, another thing you're going to want to do just to make the lines look clean is go around this edge here and pull this rubber, pull it out in front of the headliner. And it's pretty easy, just kind of go slowly, and that'll give that a clean line. All right, we're ready to start installing the angle, a fiberglass angle that's going to insulate from the van to the metal framing on the cabinets. But the first thing we have to do is put some spacers in here. So these spacers, this is about 1 inch for the side ones, and for the ceiling, about 1/2 inch. Check a couple of them, yeah, 1/2 inch. So we're going to cut those spacers out of PVC, and we're going to cut an 8.5 degree angle into that. Again, I didn't come up with this method. I found this method from Ken at Our Caravan. And also I think there's discussion in the Sprinter forums on this, that there's about an 8.5 degree angle here that the support bar is at, and we need to compensate for that so that the cabinet framing will go on straight. So we'll cut an 8.5 degree angle into those 1-inch PVC spacers. And then for the ceiling ones, these will be 1/2-inch PVC spacers cut at a 2 degree miter angle, again to compensate for the angle of the cross ribs on the top of the van. All right, just so you can see this up close, I've marked 1 inch in here from the end of the rod, and then when the blade comes down, it'll cut exactly there, and it'll cut that 8.5 degree angle into the PVC. And if you get any uneven fragments on there, just take a file and file them flat. All right, so for cutting these spacers, since we're going to be putting 1/4-20 bolts through, I don't want to cut it exactly at a 1/4-20. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. So instead of a 1/4 inch drill bit, we'll use a 5/16. And that's because the bolt needs to actually go through there at an angle. We want to give it room to do that. When mounting this up, if you have a drill press, probably be a lot easier, but I have a vise. So I'm going to put the flat side up. All right, there we go. All right, another key difference between a 15 series build and a 10 series build of 80/20 like I'm doing is where you cut the holes on the fiber angles. So in the 15 series build that you'll see on Our Caravan, they lined up the hole from the angle on this fiberglass angle. The hole's drilled a 1/2 inch up. But they used larger fiberglass, so they used the 1.5 inch angle. I'm using the 1 inch angle, so each side of the angle is 1 inch. And as a result, my angles are only 1/8 of an inch thick rather than a 1/2 inch thick. So when deciding where to drill that hole, instead of having it be a 1/2 inch from the corner, inside corner, I need to be 1/8 of an inch less than that. So it's going to be 3/8 of an inch is where I'm going to drill the holes. All right, we're going to cut these fiber angles. Make sure you wear a respirator because the fiber will just go everywhere. Again, I've marked it at 3/8 in from the inside corner. Now for these, I'm going to be using a regular 1/4 inch drill bit. All right, we're going to cut these fiber angles. Make sure you wear a respirator because the fiber will just go everywhere. Again, I've marked it at 3/8 in from the inside corner. Now for these, I'm going to be using a regular 1/4 inch drill bit. There we go. Okay, we got all of the spacers and angle brackets on. A couple of surprises. I actually ended up having to go with a 3/4 inch spacer, and then the bolt had to be about 1 1/8 to be seated just right. I think that's just a function of where the 10 series ends up compared to where the 15 series build is, because this headliner is moving away from the wall as you go up. So in my case, since I have an inch bar down here that's going to bolt underneath instead of 1.5 inches, my bolt through locations are a little bit lower than they are on the 10 series. So definitely some things to calculate out. I'll put all that in the video description. I just want to show you a quick way to check if you've got these at the right height. Just take a piece of 10 series, hold it up against the roof, and then see if your fiber angle hole lines up with it, the center channel. And if it does, then you know you've got the spacing right coming out of the ceiling. You can do the same thing down here. Just hold the small piece of 10 series up and make sure that the channel lines up with the hole. And then you know you've got your spacer coming out at the right distance. All right, here's the final product up close. So again, I went with the 10 series aluminum 8020. This is the black anodized version. I think it looks really nice. I'm going to be doing some bamboo, just like this table, which is 3/4 inch bamboo. I'm going to be doing some 1/4 inch bamboo shelves and end caps, as well as some bamboo cabinet doors on the front. Just to let you see what this looks like. So this was a 60-inch. Kind of see where it lines up. And also 60-inch here on the back side. Only trick with this side is in order to capture this cross member here, I did have to go onto this section of headliner, which is a little bit of a bummer, but not the end of the world. You can still pop this out and get to the wiring that's behind there. So it's not the end of the world, just not ideal. All right, that concludes this video on how to install 10 series extruded aluminum overhead cabinet framing in a Sprinter van. I hope you found it useful. If you liked the video, hit the like button, subscribe to our channel. There will be some links to various products I used in installing this. If you click those links, I do get a small commission, which helps keep me motivated for doing these videos, but it doesn't cost you anything more. So thanks again for joining, and most importantly, have fun out there.